Welcome to the Self-Care Sound Mind Podcast. In this space, we're going to talk about the losses we don't always have the language for. Because grief isn't only about losing someone we love. Sometimes it's the end of a relationship, a friendship that's faded, a dream that's changed, or the life we thought we'd have. In this series, we're naming all kinds of grief that often go unseen, and we're going to learn how to move through them with compassion. On this episode, we're going to be talking about grieving childhood when you realize you grew up too soon. And we're going to do this today with my special guest, Brandy Walker, LPCMH, and owner of Resilient Soul. Like, share, comment, and tell a friend that the Self-Care Sound Mind Podcast is back, and we have another amazing episode for you. Welcome to the Self-Care Sound Mind Podcast. I am Kiara Moore, your host, and I'm super excited for another wonderful episode on the grief that we don't always talk about. We have had such an amazing conversation recently, and I just want to keep it going. Thank you for your comments, for your feedback, for sharing just how important this topic has been and how helpful it has been for us to just have this conversation. So again, welcome to the Self-Care Sound Mind Podcast. I am your host, Kiara Moore, and the owner of Kiara Moore Therapeutic Services, as well as Embracing Oak Therapy. And we are doing this conversation, we're having this conversation, doing this series because grief is a conversation, a topic, a taboo that it is just, not only is it not talked about, but it's heavily misunderstood. And we want to help you not only understand it, but move through whatever grief you might be experiencing with compassion, having the tools to figure out, how do I actually deal with this? Not just get over it, as society would have us think that we need to do, but actually manage through it, work through it. So, because grief isn't only about losing someone you love, it could also be about the end of a relationship, a friendship that's faded, or a dream that hasn't come to pass, or maybe you had to change or adjust. It also can be the life, grieving the life you thought you would have. You thought things might have been different by now or turned out a little bit better by this age, and it's just not happening the way you thought it would. Well, there's a lot of feelings that come with that, and so we're going to talk about that here. We're not just going to name the different kinds of grief that go unseen, but we're going to learn how to move through them with compassion. So tonight we are going to discuss grieving our childhood. I know that some people have had great childhoods, and that's wonderful, but there are many people who as adults are still trying to figure out life, and it stems from some of those negative experiences that they're still grieving from their childhood. And so we are going to have this conversation with one of my therapist friends, Brandy Walker. We're going to welcome her to the show. I need some sound effects. So Brandy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Tell the people who you are and what you do before we jump right in our conversation.
Yes. So like Kiara said, I'm Brandy Walker, a licensed professional counselor as well. I am the founder and CEO of Resilient Soul, which is an outpatient private practice specializing in counseling, mental health counseling. We see ages 12 to 64, and I encourage you to visit our website, which is www.resiliensoulllc.com. That's one of the many things that I do, but I also co-manage Azule Consulting Group, which is really focused on providing professional office spaces to other wellness professionals.
And thank you for my space.
Yes.
Brandy and Azule are the reason I have such a wonderful office behind me. So thank you to my landlords.
That's been a blessing just to be able to offer just affordable space. Because I think that's been big fan of
affordable.
people trying to find space. Yeah, so I am thrilled to be here just to have this conversation because I do feel like it is a timely conversation. So
Mhm.
I'm so glad you're doing this whole theme on grief because and the idea of it not being just I lost a loved one,
Mhm.
because there's just so much stuff that we grieve and
Right.
that I don't think we know.
Yeah, and it's not to negate the grief that we feel when we lose someone, because the
Yeah.
other day I was managing my own loss,
Hmm.
or the triggers of a loss that I was
Yeah.
experiencing. And so losing someone through death, or the loss of a relationship through divorce, that is still a big deal.
Yes.
That's the only part of grief that tends to be discussed in scheme, in the scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's not heavily discussed at
Hmm.
all. The
Yeah.
part that is discussed is the grief that comes through death and sometimes divorce, but there's so much more.
Yeah.
And I always say it, the kids get forgotten the most.
Yes.
The
For sure.
kids get forgotten the most, and what we miss when we don't when we leave out the children, we miss the opportunity to help them so that they are healthier adults.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. For sure.
uh, Everyone knows my testimony of being delivered from working in the middle school.
Yeah.
Although it was an extremely rewarding experience. I joke about that.
Yeah.
But I would tell the kids all the time, like, man, the stuff we're talking about now, if you learn it now, like, girl, you're gonna be good.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you can get these skills now in middle
Yeah.
school and work through them in high school and perfect them in
Hmm.
college, by the time you're in the professional field, you're gonna be such a emotionally intelligent and
Yes.
well-rounded adult.
That's the truth. That's the
But
truth.
the problem is we often forget that if we're having such big feelings to experiences, what about the kids
Yes.
who are expected to show up at school even though their dad died the night before?
Yes. And I think that is like the biggest thing is hearing all these different stories about children who are showing up that we meet because I've been in the
Mhm.
school as well, and just hearing the things that they're carrying
Yes.
or the responsibilities that are placed on them to do or look after other
Mhm.
siblings and all of that. And so they do grow up, and I can't tell you they grow up fast, and I can't tell you the amount of kids who are residing with grandparents.
Mhm.
And I think that's another loss, because
Yes.
you want to have your parents, you want to grow up with your parents. You go to school and you see all these other kids whose mom and dad is coming. The school I work at, they have like essentially like a show and tell day, for parents to come and see the things that they've worked on.
Mhm.
And every time there are multiple kids who don't have anybody that can show up. It could be grandmom that is the guardian, but they're working.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, that's painful for a kid.
And
That,
think about that too, like, even the loss in that relationship of, you don't have your biological parents. So then you lose, like, when the grandparent steps in, you thank God for them.
yes.
When they step in, you lose that dynamic of grandparent. So
Hmm.
you don't get to have the typical grandparent experience where you're being spoiled by your parents.
Yes.
You're now being parented by the one, especially I even think about my parents who are raising my niece and nephews. Like, they went from being grandparents where you can do whatever you want
Hmm.
to having to parent them. And
Yeah.
then when they interact with my children, they see the difference, because
Yeah.
you get to grandparent one set of children
Yeah.
but you're parenting the other. And so there's a sense of loss even in the dynamic of that
Yeah.
relationship. You don't always realize it in the moment, but after
No.
it's kind of like, hmm, you know.
Yeah.
But I love that we can both speak from our experience of working in the school, because I'm sure you can see it where it's just you see some children and even the adults we work with where you realize they just had to grow up too soon.
Yes.
Like they don't really know how to be children, to be
Yeah.
playful, to
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean? And of course one of the main culprits, I'll say, is the idea of parentification. So can you
Hmm.
kind of talk about what you've seen in children having to be um, the third parent, so to speak?
Yeah. For a prime example, I was just, with someone and they were doing like a nice just get together, but their high school daughter had a friend over, but the friend, she had to leave early because parents aren't together. They're alternating homes. And so when they're with dad, she has to watch the kids because dad and stepmom were going out or whatever. Um, and for her, that was, and mind you, I don't know this kid like that, but to hear her upset of having to even do that,
Yeah.
I think that was for her, it just was sort of like, this is taking time away from me being able to experience this social experience and moment with my friend because now I have to step in and babysit essentially. Um,
And and just to like point a little clarity out in that topic or idea, of course everyone has responsibilities, right? And I
yes,
the pushback that I've seen is like, well, they can help, they can do this, they can do that, but there's a difference between a child who has to, you know, stay home for a day or a weekend or whatever to
yeah,
help with their siblings, and someone who is required to not have a childhood,
yes,
a live-in nanny, babysitter, whatever you want to call it.
yes,
If it's taking away the opportunity of that child to be a child, then you've made them the third parent, and it's not fair to them because it wasn't their choice to have this child.
that's right. That's right. And I think that I don't think a lot of people kind of see it that way. So to
Mhm,
your point, I get it, like you said, just to, have your older sibling, watch the younger one every now
mhm,
and then. But for some that becomes a recurring theme. But then you have this other aspect as to the world that we live in, to where I see this a lot where, parents have to sacrifice a lot
mhm,
just to make sure that they can cover the financial responsibilities to keep everything going.
mhm.
And so with that comes, I need somebody to watch the
Yeah,
kids
yeah,
when I have to go to work. And so although it's sort of like this understanding, okay, well, my parent is being responsible and doing what they're
mhm,
supposed to do to take care of me, but now it does strip the child away from just being a child because now they have to step into that role
right,
of being a parent.
right. And the it sounds cliche, but like the there has to be a balance, right? So of
Yeah.
course, the parent is doing what they can to provide
Yep.
for the child, but sometimes it's not, right? And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the
Yes.
cases that, I think about where I've seen it really have an impact on the child, it wasn't so much about um helping out or being responsible. It was simply just, this is my expectation, because maybe there are other people, or like when it comes to like missing out on some, not all, right,
Yeah.
but some social events, or not being able to play a sport because
Yes.
tend to your siblings, that's when, unfortunately, that's when resentment can start to build up,
Hmm.
right? And then we're wondering, well, why is my child withdrawing from the family, or why is my child having more of an attitude or being aggressive towards their siblings? Because now they're seeing it as a burden, right? Like, well, if I didn't have to do that, then I could do the thing that I want to do.
Right.
And then that's when we start seeing this shift. Or maybe they're internalizing it because they
Mm-hmm.
know that their parent really needs their help. But at the same time, they have these desires to be a child or
Yeah.
to be a typical teenager in high school.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do those things. So instead of expressing their concern, because there's a lot of kids who are heavily concerned about their parents
Yes.
and worried. And so instead of being honest with about how they feel, they're internalizing it. And so now we're noticing more depressed mood, or we're
Yeah.
noticing, now they're being withdrawn, but for another reason because they don't want
Mm-hmm.
to upset the parent.
Yeah. And I just thinking about that when you said that, it made me think of, just some of the experience I had with kids to where um, the parents are dealing with their own struggles, whether
Mm-hmm.
that be, drugs or anything like that. And for a kid to come to school knowing that their parent has this struggle, it's very, very hard for them to be able to focus in on whatever they need to do because they're constantly thinking about that parent.
Mm-hmm.
Or when parents, in that same sense, parents, show up inconsistently.
Yeah.
And maybe they may be absent, but every now and then they may make a phone call to the kid, or they may, come around or buy something for the kid. And then they don't hear from him for a long duration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just the impact that has on kids to where learning is secondary. Like they're not even thinking about learning and trying to learn, new math concepts or improve their reading, because the ultimate thing that they want is, that quality time from their parent. But the way that spins for a child in their mind,
Yes.
starting to believe that something may be wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't my parents want to be, you know, around
Mm-hmm.
me? And so in those cases, it's sort of like, they miss out on, a parent being that protector,
Yeah.
being the one to guide them, being the one to
Stability.
provide structure, yes,
Yeah.
to them. And so they still, in that scenario, still have to show up and do so much while also trying to navigate these complex emotions that they didn't bring on themselves.
Um, yeah. I'm trying not to.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how I can share this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll just put it this way: there have been conversations that I've had, where I've had to just flat out say, "Listen, this kid knows that they have the possibility of failing this grade, and they're okay with going to summer school. And honestly, my goal right now is to keep them alive."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my goal, like they could not care less about this
Mm-hmm.
class, about this school year, because the impact that their grief has had on their life has them considering if life is worth living.
Right.
So there are some priorities here.
Yes. Yeah.
Of course, their education is important.
Yes.
And my goal working within the school was
Mhm.
to help them regulate so they could get to a place of being able to learn.
Yes. Yeah.
But we weren't at that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was more like, well, how long are we supposed to just, I mean, I know this happened, but how? And I'm like, they can go to summer school.
Mm-hmm.
They can repeat the grade.
Yeah.
But honey, if they ain't here,
Yeah.
what does it matter?
Right. Yes.
It's like I'm working real hard over here.
Yeah. Yes.
Make sure they show up every day.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, of course, education is important,
For
but
sure.
how can it's hard to focus excuse me, when your basic needs aren't met. So it's
Mhm.
hard to focus when you're hungry. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to focus if you need to use the bathroom. Imagine
Yeah.
how hard it is to focus if you're trying to figure out like if your parents are safe or
Yes.
is someone going to be home when I get there.
Yeah. Hmm. That would
It's
make it extremely hard to focus.
or God forbid some other trauma happened, right? Where
Hmm.
they're stuck in this loop of traumatic experiences. Like it's important that they get an education, but it's important that they get an education in a way where um, some of these other needs are also being met so that
Yeah.
they can learn without
Yes.
distraction. So
Yes.
I know we kind of like jumped around there, but like
Yeah.
in some cases, it's the parentification, and then the adverse childhood experiences. So can you kind
Hmm.
of like go into that of like how that also brings on experiences of grief?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, just traumatic experiences, or a lot of kids get their birth into a lot of unknowns, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
instability, and as we know, the beginning stages of a child's life are the most important,
Yeah.
for them to feel safe, for them to know that, if I cry, somebody's going to respond to, my needs or whatever it is. And so with the adverse childhood experiences, essentially that's speaking to those first years of life before you turn
Mm-hmm.
into an adult. And so it's speaking to the point of what your experiences are leading up till you turn 18, and giving some implication of what life will be in your later adulthood. And so, like we've been talking about, yes, we every individual loses people, but I feel like that's the easiest one to point out when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about grief. But there's just so many other pieces, like with children. It could be a very close childhood friend where, maybe they moved away, and now that's a part of grief for that child.
Yes.
Being
Amazing.
bullied in school, that's a
Mhm.
part of grief for a child. um, like you mentioned, not being able to, do the things that a child should be able to do. And they're not blind to things because they see friends doing doing all the things, or they go to school and they see kids being able to be a part of different extracurricular activities that they're not able to be a part of. And the home dynamic,
Mhm.
that's a big piece. A lot of people, um and I'm very, what's the word, I guess, graceful with taking in like just the home dynamic, because I
Mhm.
know everybody's home dynamic stems from what was before them or
Yeah.
how they grew up.
Yeah.
um but just being able to take in and say, how is this, how we are functioning in this home, how could this
Mhm.
be affecting my child?
Yes. It's
Just things that we speak. It is, you could have a beautiful home and can be, making sure meals are there, they have all of that, they have the love, but if they are hearing certain, belittling phrases or
mm.
things that just kind of put them down or make them feel like they can never do anything right,
Mhm.
that's going to damage them.
Yes. In
That's
in the last episode, we talked about the impact of the messages you receive in your
mm,
childhood, right? And
oh
some
yes.
some messages are direct,
Hmm.
some messages are indirect. And
Yes.
when I do well, and pretty much in counseling in general, you want to know how a person was raised, what their childhood
Yes.
was like. But I
Hmm.
especially have this conversation in the first session that I do with all couples.
Yeah.
And
Yes, that's important.
so because it's so I, I love when the light bulb goes off above
Yes.
their head because they're kind of like, oh, so that's what the
Yes.
okay. So that's why, okay, it makes sense. And you could start seeing it.
Yes.
So I'll ask them, like, literally, like, what was your childhood like? What did, your parents' relationship look like? Or what did relationships look like growing up for you? What was your relationship with your parents or whoever
Yeah.
raised you? Because that's going to have a direct impact on how you behave in relationships,
Yep.
because that is what shaped your core beliefs. So if you grew up without stability,
Mm-hmm.
you grew up feeling like you only had to rely on yourself, you had to fend for yourself, you had to survive, no one was going to save you.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. If you grew up feeling like you can't really be vulnerable or
Yeah.
open up, and then, like, 10 out of 10 times you marry someone with the exact opposite needs. And so then they're like, well, I married someone, or I grew up in a household where, we talked about everything.
Yeah.
Or we asked for help all the time. We relied
Mm-hmm.
on each other. And then it's like, so you can't rely on people. That
Yeah.
was the message that you received. And you
Mm-hmm.
need to rely on people, or you should
Right.
rely on people, or you can rely on people.
Uh-huh.
And so now you don't want to ask, you ask for everything. And
Right.
that's being the messages are like, I don't understand why you can't be there for me. And I don't understand why you
Yeah.
need me to do everything. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, do you guys see
Yeah.
how your core beliefs
Mm-hmm.
are shaping the way that you respond in these types of relationships, or
Yeah.
even in friendships?
Yes.
You might be the friend that listens, but you're never going to be the friend that shares, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel that level of trust with people. It starts
Yes.
when you're a kid.
When you're a
You don't
kid.
realize, sometimes when you're an adult and you see how it's impacted you, that's when you really start to grieve your childhood.
Yes.
Wow, that wasn't normal.
Yeah.
And when it really hits, when they have a kid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You think about all the ways, and when you are working to be healthy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Emotionally healthy, and
Yeah.
then you have a kid and you want them to be emotionally healthy, and you think about all the things that were not healthy that you experienced. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
And you feel that grief. You feel
Yeah.
that sadness, right? Because it kind of shows those major differences.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how that works. So we have to be careful with the messages that we share with
Yeah.
our kids, because they don't have the ability to say, oh, mommy's just mad, she doesn't mean that, like, she's speaking out of anger. No,
Yeah.
you say something out of pocket and they're gonna look at you like, wow, you really think that about me. It's so funny. My 3-year-old, who, Lord help me, if I fuss at him, he goes, mommy, that was scary. You scared me. And I'm like, well, mommy won't use her angry voice. You just listen, little boy,
Yes.
But like, my kids are so vocal. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
that scared me. I'm like, well, I don't want to scare you. I want to motivate you to listen.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to find an alternative route
Yes.
to do the things I said do.
Yes.
But like, it's just like, so, like, if a kid is not able to say, wow, that was scary,
Yeah.
you know, and if I didn't have the conversation, like, okay, well, I'm sorry that I scared you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to scare you. That's not the
Yeah.
goal. But I need to manage my frustration, but I also need you to follow directions, right? So we're having this conversation.
Yes. Yes. That open dialogue.
multiple
Yes. And it's,
multiple
I mean, it's the
but
nonverbal too. Yeah, I get it.
right.
Because my son is the same way. I don't, I had to say, like, I done told you, we talked about your room like 1,000 times now. And
Listen,
so
uh, ain't it hard being a therapist and a mom, because you got
it
to
really,
balance between, like, okay,
yes, yes, practicing what we preach.
how do I want to handle this right
Yeah.
now?
But that's it. For me, it's more, and I had to, even just last night, I had to let the kids know, like, okay, I see so much in you guys that I struggled with as a kid. So
Mm,
just the aspect of feeling comfortable in myself, feeling comfortable at using my voice, being social with other people. And so I grew, most of my time was spent in church. So there was, we didn't really branch out. I played some sports here and there, but it wasn't like a supportive thing. My mom she was locked in with the church on all, committee meetings and all this other stuff. And so as an adult, when I asked her, like, what happened? Like, me and my sister, we played sports, but you never were there. So it was only us two. Sometimes we was at the school and with the janitor trying to call, somebody to come pick us up. But she told me she had her own social anxiety. Something that I would have never, like, as a kid, never even thought about, because that's just not where my mind was at.
Yeah.
We were talking about those different kind of things. And so for her, it was more so, going into those spaces with a whole bunch of people. And she just felt more comfortable being where she was. And so it's those pieces where for kids, they see a lot. So even if we're not saying things or giving them negative messages, they also watch us very closely.
Yes. They learn so much by seeing what we do. I mean, and most of what they're learning is mimicking, right?
Yeah.
And so if they're watching your behavior, then they're literally learning how to live based on how you live, right? And so that's why it's so important to be careful about the messages, both direct and indirect, that we are with our children. And sometimes, and we think we're hiding things, but children are so intuitive that they know, right? It's better to have an open, child appropriate dialogue, right? Than to feel like you have to hide. And one of the things I discuss with grief all the time is we also we also teach children how to grieve. Because that's not just, something innate with us, right? We feel our emotions. We also teach that too. Like, how do we respond to those emotions? So when it comes to grief, if every time you are upset about something, you go in your room so that your children don't see you upset, then what are they going to think that they need to do? Go to the room and shut themselves away, because that's the only thing that they see. I encourage parents all the time, cry in front of your children. Because if you were upset, and it also impacts them, but you're hiding how you feel, it's going to make them think that something's wrong
with them.
Because mommy seems to be okay. Why am I so sad? I want to cry. But if mommy's not crying, then I don't want to, you know what I mean? So it's like, have the emotion in front of your kids and let them know that it's okay to feel what they feel, right? And show them a healthier way to process what they're doing. Because they see when we're angry, they see when we're fussing and we're yelling. I had to ask my oldest son, like, why are you yelling at your brother like that? Like who yells at you? Like that. Because you ain't learned that from us. Like, I don't where you get this from? You know what I mean? And that little boy drives my oldest crazy. And anybody who knows my oldest, he is like calm, cool, and collected. Oh, that 3-year-old, we put him through it. And he'd be like, brother, you got to calm down. You got some inner rage we need to work on. Like, he takes them to another place. Like, totally out of character. I know we don't model that. Like, I ain't gonna, I might get frustrated, but I know I don't model
do all that. He's doing his job. I watch my boy and girl, and it's like watching me and my husband. My daughter responds in ways I do, son responds in ways my husband does. So it's just like, oh my gosh. But to your point, I try to be very transparent with them about a lot of different things. Even with, I mean, I had a lot of losses last year,
Yeah.
grandmom, grandfather a month later, and then uncle like a month. And I know you had so many losses. So, they're familiar with those individuals. And so just having those conversations and letting them know, like, yeah, I'm feeling this today. Like I miss her. But for me, it's always, and I do this with a lot of clients that I work with that are dealing with grief, being able to tap into the memories.
Yeah.
And not just, it's painful that they're not here anymore. But being grateful that we have these memories to recall. But it's all about, like you said, just the coping, healthy ways of coping, so that they can take those skills and that only helps them be more functioning adults.
Right. So when you say that, right, I think about how that saying, too much of anything is not good, right? Even if it's good, too much of it is not good, right? So we talked about like being parentified and having to do things at a young age. And then it makes me think about this hyper independence that we see, right? And it's so interesting. I've done a lot of like reflection on this because that's definitely my personality. But let me rephrase that. That's something that I do.
Yes.
And how I function at times. And I'm learning to unlearn that. But I think that hyper independence comes from an unmet need. Right. So like I needed something in some way, and it's taught me that I can't rely on everyone. It's hard to trust, because if I trust you and you don't deliver, then I'm gonna be disappointed.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not be disappointed, so I'm just going to do all the things. But we were not created to do all the things by ourselves, right? And that's why we end up being burnt out, overworked. Yesterday, I the last couple of days, I've been telling my clients, I'm going to fire whoever scheduled 9 sessions in a day. Who did? Meanwhile, it was me, right? I'm like, girl, what is your problem? You got a whole week. Why? But it's like this idea of always doing the things, and I remind myself, I said, I need to go read my own book. Let me, I need a reminder. Let me get back and remind myself of the things I'm supposed to be working through. Because it does create this sense that, again, the messages you receive as a child. And what's interesting to me, and I can only speak from my experience, is that I would not describe my childhood or upbringing as traumatic at all. Right. I had a lot of, but the thing that impacted me the most was the messaging. The indirect messaging is what impacted me the most. It's what I internalized. And I can remember being 4 years old. And saying, I'm never telling them anything again. Because I shared something, how you are, you share something. Everyone thinks it's so funny, you're so cute, so they're going to tell everybody. And I remember being like, I am never telling you another secret again. And that was the beginning of me not being honest about how I felt. Feeling like I could not talk to people and what I shared be safe. I'm telling you, I am still working through that.
I can understand it, because that kid that had, a parent on drugs, that was me. I had my mom who was very committed to the church. She was our consistent one. But then my dad he had his drug usage issue. Um, and so, although he was committed to church too, but he was also in and out of jail. He would use drugs in the home. And so for me, because I am that hyper independent person too, and I'm trying to work through that now. To recognize, okay, I really can't do everything. I really can't. But what that provided me was having that control provided me safety.
Exactly.
Predictability.
Exactly.
Because as a kid, things were so unpredictable. So as an adult, I can control the things. And now I can feel safe.
Yeah. Or have that perceived control.
Yes. And that's exactly what it is. That's what it is.
I literally just had a couple session. It was the first session, and they shared that this was the problem. And then we talked about their childhoods, and they're like, I was like, so do you see why? So this is not, the partner perceived it as a form of control. And the other spouse, it was like, this is a form of safety. And so and it's not, it wasn't even control in the sense of like what we think about, but it's literally just like the perceptions were just, again, opposing because of their experiences. And so it's hard to kind of go with the flow when a lack of control or stability or structure has been your experience, right? And again, we are therapists working through these things every day, because we're still individuals, we're still humans, and we expect kids to just function without real understanding. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
And that's why we see a whole lot of adults who come in and they really need to heal that inner child.
Yes. And it's a true thing. And I know we're talking about kids a lot, but the adults are another factor. And I always look at myself, because I'm like, I feel like there's always something that's popping up as I'm going through this journey of life, going to my own therapy sessions. And I'm like, oh God, there's another thing, that is impacting my functioning. And so it's just this never ending thing of learning who you are or healing parts of yourself. But to your point, as kids, they don't have the words. They don't really understand what is happening. A lot of adults don't understand what's happening. And so being able to, speak and educate kids on, what your feelings are, and normalizing what feelings are it goes a really, really long way.
It's if we can get to the kid now, like I said earlier, they'll be starting at such a great place. But even getting through to the parent also helps the child, right? And so how many parents really need to heal their inner child, right? So that the way that they are bringing up their children, really, it makes such a huge impact. And again, it goes back to messaging. Like, you might see relationships in some way, right, where, or the kids see the relationship and they're like, well, this parent doesn't really do a whole lot. Like, it gets to the point where the kid is kind of like, why are you with somebody like that? You know what I mean? Like the kid's kind of like, they're not very nice to you. Like, they see these things. They
see everything.
And it's hard to answer your kid when they're like, why are you with them? You're like, that's a good question.
Yes,
You know?
they pick up on the dysfunction, or
Yes.
are you trying to fill a void, even though they may not communicate it in that manner. It's a real thing. But to
Mhm.
your point, if we are healthy, or really actively being mindful of how we're showing up, or trying to heal our inner workings, our parts, that only benefits our children.
Mhm.
Because that they're learning from us, and
Right.
that dynamic of just child and parent is just so strong. I can't tell you how many people, that kids I've worked with, and their parents might not have been in their lives, but they still had some level of power
Yes. Yes.
over them. And
Yes.
so that dynamic is so strong. And
And part of being, healthy adults and healing that inner child so that we can have healthier children. Well, one, I love the fact that, we are with the millennials being the parents,
yeah,
right? I always think like we're the ones that we're the ones in therapy. We're the ones
yeah,
talking it out.
yes,
Like we're the ones where like the emotions matter. So
yeah,
there's a lot more like the children are very emotionally intelligent. So,
yes.
like they can like, oh, okay, that was quite
Hmm.
insightful. Obviously not in all cases, but
Yeah.
I think about like even how when it comes to parents, not even just unlearning the negative messaging, but also um, almost rewiring how they think, because you have to unlearn and
Oh
relearn,
my God.
right?
Yeah.
You have to shed the things that don't serve you, the messages from childhood that were inaccurate, that are not helpful, that are actually harmful, but you have to replace them with something, right? And I
Yes.
think about how, like, when you go to the doctor and they talk about your medical history,
Hmm.
right? Like, well, excuse me, what do you have on your mom's side? What do you have on your dad's side?
Yes.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, like there's a lot, we're predisposed to a lot of things.
Yes, for sure.
However, being predisposed doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen. Like it's
Right.
really about what we do to
Hmm.
prevent what we're predisposed to. So
Yes.
if we're exposed to things that are harmful as children,
Hmm.
at some point when we become adults, we have to say that might have been what I experienced, but I have the power to control how I continue. And
Right.
so I know like it's really important for my husband and I to pass on healthier habits. Um,
Hmm.
and my kids, they pretty much just said, I don't care what you think, right? Because I was all like, we ain't eating processed food and blah, blah, blah. And then my kid only ate chicken nuggets for a year. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't really have time to fight with you right now.
Yes. Yep.
But but like really like changing like the idea of what's normal. So being active and doing more things that, are physical to just maintain a early idea of health and wellness, right?
Yes.
Of the importance of taking care of yourself uh, on a physical basis, right? Like
Hmm.
just managing in all of these areas that might not have been clear,
Yeah.
or having to prevent what we're predisposed to. Like,
Right.
because my in-laws just passed from heart issues. That's something that we have to take into consideration,
Hmm.
not only for my husband, for his brother, but for my children. So it's like, okay, so we're going to learn how to be heart healthy early.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it's the same when it comes to things of an emotional nature, right? If
Yeah.
you know that, you're working through trust and
Yeah.
the ability to trust, building levels of trust with your children, that's
Hmm.
not only going to help them, but that's going to help you.
Yes. Yep.
So it works in a way where although we have, negative childhood experiences, or we might have had, these
Hmm.
experiences of parentification or having
Yeah.
to grow up a little too early, or even, you know, the loss of innocence or trauma in some way, shape, or form, there does come a point when what happened to us doesn't get to define how we move forward.
That's right. Yeah.
We have to, there are different variables with that, but
Mm-hmm.
especially in adulthood, what happened to you loses its power. And
Yeah.
what you do about it has
Yeah.
more power to
Mm-hmm.
control the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So it's not only important, that we are being healthy with our children, but also
Mm-hmm.
that we are being healthy enough as parents, as the village, aunts, uncles, whomever,
Yeah.
guardians, teachers,
Mm-hmm.
that we are giving our children a better message so that we are raising healthier children.
Yes. Yeah.
So, any last thoughts you want to share before I give our reflection question?
Yes, I would just encourage everyone to just be mindful of you. I always encourage clients to think about how they would ultimately like to show up.
Mm,
And so that way it's a starting point, essentially a goal. And
hmm.
so part of it is the work that you have to put in to get to reach that goal.
Yes,
Because I believe all of that is possible, but you do have to put in work.
you do
I think
a lot of work.
we've acknowledged that the work has to be done, and you have to be willing to go to those parts of yourself that may be painful,
Hmm.
because the healing that happens from that is just so rewarding. But it's not only rewarding for you, like we've said, it's rewarding for those that you're raising, those that are around you. So I would just encourage everyone to just seek the help you need and reflect on you and how you want to show up.
Yes. So tell everyone where they can find you, where they can follow you, where to go for therapy, all the things.
Yes, so you can find us. We're on Facebook, Resilient Soul LLC. Like I mentioned before, you can visit our website, which is resilientsoulllc.com. We have our contact form right on the website. If you're interested in counseling services, you can just submit that. We'll reach out to you. Outside of that, so you can always email us info@resilientsoulllc.com, or give us a call at 302-828-1273.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to leave us with our reflection question. I'm going to post it in the chat. And the question is, what parts of childhood are you reclaiming today? What
Mm.
parts of childhood are you reclaiming today? I hope they see some good answers in the chat. As always, thank you for joining the conversation, for tuning in to the Self Care Sound Mind podcast. I am Kiera Moore, and for your therapeutic needs, you can go to embracingoak.com. You can watch the replays and all the past episodes at kieratmoore.com or on Facebook, YouTube, or Spotify. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time.